Good morning. Today I have a very special guest, Yemi. I haven't talked to you for a while, Yemi, and I'm so excited to have you as part of this campaign. I would like to throw it over to you to introduce yourself.
Ooh, thank you so much. Look, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm big on stories using voice and always grateful to those that do the platform, and Mind Blank is definitely up there. So my name is Yemi Penn. My spiel is I'm an engineer by profession, an entrepreneur by passion, and a mindset transformation coach by mission. But what ties all of that is, for me, transformation of our trauma and transforming it into power. So that's probably the best way to describe myself, but so many things go on in the background.
I love it. So aligned to that, transforming that pain. I've got a new word, sorry, into power. There we go.
Yeah. No, you were there.
Very powerful. Thank you, Yemi. Okay, so for this campaign, I'm only asking a few questions, but the first one is, what is one mental health tactic you yourself use? Not every day is going to be a bright, sunny day for us. And of course, this year we've been challenged by the pandemic and many, many layers of change. So what is one tip or tactic that you can share that you yourself do for your own mental well-being?
Yeah, look, it's a great question, because when you ask that, I get two things that come into my mind, and I'm only going to share one, but I want to explain the reason why the other doesn't become my first. I was going to say meditation, but I acknowledge that meditation is what a lot of people say. However, sometimes I struggle to get into meditation. Yeah. But one sure way that I keep my mental health in check is when I work out. And my workout has to be, it doesn't always have to be, but it's got to be very different. I need variety because of the way my brain operates. I get bored quite easily. I can focus on a problem for too long. I tend to live in the future. But the reason why my particular exercise, and I do these high intensity classes, but we also have low intensity, is because it's literally kicking my butt that I have no choice but to be in the moment. And being in the moment for that 45 minutes is like giving my brain 6 hours of respite. And then the great things is what it does to my body afterwards, the endorphins. So, I think people have explained exercise as just a way for the body, and people say the mind, but they never really break down the mind. I want to break it down, that 45 minutes of focusing on the workout that I don't have to think about really helps my mind. And I realize that when I do it in the morning, it sets me up for the day. By about 3 p.m, there's a bit of a slump, but I find another way and I keep going.
Yeah, fabulous. Thanks so much for sharing that, Yemi. What comes to mind initially is, do you know that in the UK, I think it is, that GPs can prescribe, if someone comes with depression or isolation symptoms, for example, they can prescribe exercise.
Oh, wow.
Like, brilliant.
Amazing.
Yeah. They're testing different models, and art classes can be prescribed, but exercise, because it makes so much sense. It's so good for our well-being. And sometimes people aren't naturally in that swing, but it can make a dramatic effect on your mood for sure. Brilliant.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. Let's see how long it takes to get it here in Australia.
Yeah, right. That's the question.
Anyway. Okay, next question. What is your message of hope for someone who may need to hear it right now? Given the pandemic, once again, like, there's been such interesting tales, so many challenges that we've faced. There are some people who may still be very much facing that here today now. What do you think is a message of hope that could have been helpful? Like, you've got your own insight from your own personal story. What do you think would have helped you in one of those times?
I think a message of hope, and something that I use very often. So believe me, I like to use myself as a guinea pig. I try not to share things on, things you can do unless I've tried it, because I also want to be real. I've put together this tool, which is very simple, and it's called the Pain to Power Mapping Tool. And what I do is I literally map all the other painful moments in my life. And I go as far back as I can remember. Yeah. And then I really try to switch my brain and say, well, you remember when you went through that painful moment, you really didn't think you were going to make it. You almost didn't make it, but something happened and you got through it. What was the good in that really crappy situation that came out of it? Like, you really got to dare and challenge yourself. And I really take it back. And that's what we need to do. Like, let's just not say empty words. Really, you, the individual, go back and just pick 3 times in your life that you thought, that's it, I'm finished. Whether you lost the job or you did something else. What you start doing is finding your blueprint. There was something in you, whether you've recognized it or not, that allowed you to go through that time and time again. And my message of hope is, I promise you that that version of you has only gotten stronger, and you will get through it. I don't even want to give any other method, just acknowledging that you will get through it because you did before.
Yeah. Very powerful. Thanks, Yemi.
Very welcome. I like that one.
Oh, I love it. I mean, you were, I know you were talking about trauma. You know, I've just found a lot of people try and run from that intensity of the emotion. So it's very difficult to gain that insight to kind of look back and look at some of those really challenging times or places in life. Are there any tips? Like, I know that you've been through it and it sounds like you've done some really extensive work in that space. For someone who has never done that before, you've challenged them to pick 3 times in their life to kind of look at some of those instances. Any tips on how they can take care of themselves during that emotional journey?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think sometimes it's finding that safe place. And once again, safe place might just be a nice buzzword, but it could be a friend. If it's not a friend, it could be you. As awkward as it is, sometimes I look in the mirror and eyeball myself, which is so uncomfortable, and tell myself, you are worthy, you are worthy. So if I can't feel comfortable with saying I am worthy, I look at me, her, and say, you are worthy. So finding a safe place can be with yourself, but where you kind of give those affirmations. Finding a friend who actually asks you, how are you? And you can say, is it okay if I really share how I am? Why don't we start taking control? We've got the Are You Okay Day, which is great. And not everyone is actually ready to hear if you're okay. So a question we can ask is it okay if I share with you how I'm really feeling? Just that connection would allow you. I'm a big believer in just acknowledging what you went through. Just acknowledge this happened. It might not be a big deal to somebody else, but it's a big deal for me. And this is how it made me feel. When you speak these words out, the power that it was holding over your mind, I think is just that little bit less. And that allows you to think a little bit clearer.
Yeah. And it's like that space of truth and vulnerability. And what I love is that when you find that, it unconsciously, opens up permission for others too, to, find that space. But before we move on, I'll just share an analogy. I was just light bulb on top of my head is to try and, to try and give a different metaphor in this physical body that we have. Because sometimes the brain and the emotions, we get scared of it because we don't know or understand it fully. But in a physical sense, I can relate to it in terms of if someone needs to get some dental work done, they can avoid it for as long as possible because of that fear of that dental surgery. But the longer we avoid it, the bigger the issue can pile up to be and the more work needs to get done, But if we find that space and that vulnerability and being brave to just sit in that doctor's chair to get that tooth removed or whatever it is, right, it will heal. And when it heals, eventually one day you're going to forget that ever happened.
Yes, correct. It's just getting through that moment, and that's where the courage is. But you probably underestimate how courageous you've already been. Yeah,
and it's in a way that fear or anxiety leading up to that experience is worse than actually getting it done. Because yes, it will hurt like a painful journey. I'm still using that analogy, but it will heal. And then once it does heal, it has less power over you, and then more space to, control your life and focus on other aspects rather than have it control you.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Absolutely. My last question to you is, yes, as you're aware, this is a suicide prevention initiative, and we're just curious to ask the question, from individuals who may have had lived experience, whether it's themselves or helping support someone who may have had experience of suicide ideation. What we're curious about is collecting what are some insights or helpful action steps that have helped turn someone around. You know, sometimes we've noticed it's one direct action or a gesture from one person that could help support and literally save that person's life. I'm just wondering if you have any insights that you would like to share with us today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know one of the last times I reached out to you is because someone very close to me had suicide ideation. I mean, really close to me. And there were two lenses I had. I had the lens, the cultural lens, culturally coming from an African background. We don't have those conversations often. And it might be because we never had the time to have those conversations because we've got to survive, you know, especially still trying to, you know, play our role in society. So I was going through that lens because it didn't make any sense to me. However, when I started to do the work and then go and speak to a therapist, and in this instance, speak to you, one thing that I think, and I'm saying this from the other perspective, was actually just letting the person know that they have been heard, not to actually solve it. And that really worked with this person, is the fact that I was actually saying, I hear you, I understand you, and that was enough. The other thing that I've seen that's really helped, and especially this person in particular, is I went back to my indigenous memory of it takes a village. And so we had to recreate the village. And that was some family in Australia, and it was family and friends in the UK. And that last bit has been big. And I think society is missing that, and we need to start recreating villages that go beyond the immediate bloodline.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. It's really interesting. Hey, I've noticed my family line that's here in Australia. I've noticed and witnessed that there is this want or craving for being independent, you know, living alone and living, you know, that's something that people have strived for. There's so many houses in demand for one person units, for example. That the other side of me, the cultural background from my mum's family, is that village. It's that your open doors are swinging where cousins are coming in and out, you know, you've got support around you. But both essence brings us down to we are all human and need this connection.
Absolutely, we do.
So there's so much into that. We've got to remind ourselves who are those core 5 people, for example, that can be our support, that are true and authentic people. We've got to remember that before we hit that rock bottom. But it's fantastic. Fantastic to hear that even if we miss that window, there's still opportunities at various stages in our lives, you know, and that recovery journey even more so. Let's invite the collective in. Whereas a clinical perspective, sometimes going to the doctors, the way that it's the lens of focus is individual therapy, which we need, but hang on, wellness can involve a creative and a collective as well. Brilliant. Any further comments or queries that you would like to leave for this campaign?
I think let's keep using our voice for those who feel strong enough to do that, because in speaking, as you say and a number of us say, it helps to relieve others. And if you're not ready to use your voice, just know that we see you, and that's okay.
Very beautiful. Thanks, Yemi. And it's absolutely a journey for us all to have found, you know, a position to have a voice, but now it's out there here at Rural, right?
Yes, indeed.
So last question to you is just, if anyone has related to any parts of your story today, how can they stay in touch with you?
I'm an Instagram queen, but I'm also on Facebook, but my Instagram is just yemi.penn, yemi.penn. Send me a message there, or similar, go onto my website, yemipenn.com. But I love connecting on the Instagram community because I'm creating safe containers to have those uncomfortable but necessary conversations. So let's connect there.
Brilliant. I'll drop those links in the post. Thank you so much for being here as part of the interview, and I very much look forward to more stories as we continue the campaign.
Thank you so much, Annie.